of Famer Rick Bozich from WDRB.com joins me now. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Enjoying the cooler weather.
Oh, man, it has been sweet. It has been sweet. I've been lamenting my Reds a lot for no reason other than there's nothing else to do. But in the break, I said the other day, I was noticing Johnny Cueto was pitching for the daggone White Sox, man. I'm like going, there's another one that drives me nuts. I loved him. He did great for the Reds, and he's just another in a long line of good players that they have shipped away.
He's fun to watch because he's sort of like, I'm dating myself here, he's kind of like the modern version of Louis Tiant, where he gives you all these different motions and twists and turns and hesitations, and he gets by on deception instead of velocity anymore. And secondly, when he pitches, he pitches like he's running out to put money in the parking meter, man. He doesn't hold the ball, man. He kept the game moving. I like that.
That's very unusual in this day and age, too. Craziness. I just mentioned in the last segment as well, Indiana with a new announcement. Well, they haven't made an announcement. I shouldn't say that, but a report on the Hoosier.com at Indiana Rivals that Cole Peterson is expected to be named the assistant director of football operations in Indiana. He comes from Youngstown State as the director of football operations and player personnel there, but he'd only been in that position 1 year because he's only 1 year from graduating. But man, Youngstown State, which I know it's Tressel had been there before, but now he's the president. I didn't realize that. And Bo Pelini is the football coach. Man, they've got a kind of a line right there at Youngstown State.
I mean, you look across the entire state of Ohio. I mean, in addition to Ohio State and all the greatness they've had, but I mean, Fickles turned Cincinnati into a power. We remember when Urban Meyer was running things at Bowling Green. Youngstown State's successful. Toledo's had a good run. Joe Burrow had his connections at Ohio University with his dad coaching there. Ohio is just everything about Ohio screams football, and it's probably a good hire to get somebody from Youngstown State because they take football seriously there.
Well, obviously, his dad is in the business. His dad left in the offseason to become the director of NIL on Cincinnati's or Luke Fickell's Cincinnati staff. So football's in the family, coaching's in the family. Obviously, getting someone young like that is, I'm guessing that this is going to be somewhere involving the transfer portal, because we had talked to Tom about that possibility, and he had mentioned that they would like to do something like that. But this isn't coming from Indiana anyway, so what he'll be doing will probably be announced later. But I'm guessing that that's kind of what that's going to be about.
Yeah, probably some kind of recruiting, lining up visits, social media stuff. There's so much involved in that. I mean, looking down my way, Louisville's got a top 15, some say top 10 recruiting class coming for next year. And the reason is they really invested a lot of money and personnel in their, recruiting department. They've got 2 or 3 guys who work on it full time, and they've done a really good job on social media of once they get guys to kind of get them all connected. And, when you're a school that's got to find ways to, compete against the big dogs who just beat you with their tradition and their success and their resources, you got to have your own niche. And I'm not sure what Indiana's niche is right now. It was, I guess, LEO there, but that's kind of stalled now.
And I wonder what programs like Indiana and Louisville, who are, I still call middling D1, upper D1 programs, they're there, but are they, if they get these recruits and they work hard to get these recruits, that's just half the battle. Now it's going to be keeping these recruits from somebody coming in and poaching them with a little NIL deal and the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's just the way the game's played. I mean, even the big schools lose big recruits. You look at guys who've come in, and the kid went to Ohio State last year. The quarterback from Texas stayed 1 year. Now he's at Texas. And Notre Dame has lost guys to other schools. I mean, that's just, you got to get what you can get every year and do your best to keep them happy and give them opportunity and then move on. Look at Indiana's gotten a lot of players from other Power 5 programs who they're really counting on this year. That's what I looked, it was on, I think it's on Peegs this week. They're doing the countdown of the top 30 most important players on the football team, and like most of the ones I've read so far are transfers from other schools. Jared Casey, the kid from Ballard who played at UK, Emery Simmons, I think the wide receiver who came from North Carolina, and 8 or 10 of those guys are critical to any success Indiana's going to have in football this year.
Well, and it starts at the top because I think that the quarterback is going to end up being Connor Bozich from Missouri, another
Right.
transfer who is just went to the Manning Academy, and so it's going to start at the top. And then you got receivers that were there from last year. DJ Matthews from Florida State or whatever. I think Indiana is going to be a program that is built on that, not built on their recruiting as their early recruiting. It's going to be the later recruiting.
Yeah, and you got to have guys who are in the office who are keeping track of these guys, of who might be somebody who's going to pop into the transfer portal, and got to pounce on them when they become available. And they have done a good job with 2 or 3 guys who are players. I think that they've recruited when they were in high school. They lost the recruiting battle. They went somewhere else. It didn't work out well for them, at their initial choice, and Indiana's been willing to look past the disappointment of not signing him out of high school and taking him on as a transfer.
And something I've noticed lately, though, that it's no secret and it's nothing that's different, but I think within the last 2 weeks, I've seen 3 offensive linemen from the state of Indiana commit, 2 to Iowa, 1 to somebody else. But the point is, that's exactly to Louisville, of all places, Louisville. Not of all places, but I mean, when you're trying to fight for in-state, and you're losing these guys, especially at the position where you're hurting the most probably on your program right now, you're losing in-state guys. That should tell you a couple of things. Obviously, that's an area where you're not doing well in state, but secondly, what's the reason? Why are you not? Because you can still land guys at other positions from within the state that are higher up, higher rated, but not at offensive linemen, and it's killing Indiana because it stops on the offensive line, man.
I agree. I mean, it's been an ongoing problem. I think there are 3 former Indiana high school players on the offensive line, top 10, top 12 at Ohio State. The kid from Indianapolis, Dwan Jones, is the guy that was a basketball player too. There's the kid, I think was Fry was his name, from Indianapolis, who's a backup. And then you had the kid from Floyd Central, who initially committed to Louisville, and he's a backup at Ohio State. So that's 3 guys from the state of Indiana who've gone to Ohio State. Louisville got this one. Iowa's gotten several. I mean, Purdue obviously gets its share. I mean, Indiana they've got Sales, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Fiacable. They've got some guys from in-state, but the top of the line, they're not getting them. And I'm sure part of it is lack of success, but considering all the discussion that went on last year among people who really follow IU football closely, about the dissatisfaction with the offensive line and the offensive line coach, I think that's something that that's the number one place to look at IU going forward this year. Is the offensive line going to be able to at least be functional? Because last year it wasn't. That they couldn't run the ball at all. They couldn't pass protect, and quarterbacks, different people got hurt, and the offense was just abysmal. And unless the offensive line improves, I really don't see it getting that much better this year.
Sorry. I agree. And not only that, but Tom Allen is kind of banking. I don't want to say he's banking his career on that, but that's a big piece of what's coming up next, because if success does not come, and especially if it's at the offensive line, and we're a hole, that's going to be a gigantic point of discussion, which is not that it hasn't already been, but it's going to become a huge point of discussion at this point of his career at IU.
Yeah, I mean, the number one person I think who got the heat last year was Nick Sheridan, and he was relieved of his duties. But I think the person who was next on the list that IU fans were unhappy with was Darren Hiller. and he didn't make a change there. Other changes were made on the staff. Obviously, new defensive coordinator, a couple other spots I think turned over. The running backs coach left, and that's been sort of created some questions around IU about what was his role last year and some of the other running backs leaving. And then they lost that commitment from the kid from Cincinnati who went to Notre Dame, and they lost, Dylan McCullough's son, who's going to be a high school senior. He decommitted and he's going to Cincinnati instead. The kid who was at Bloomington South and now is playing high school ball in South Bend. It's all eyes on that offensive line, starting with game one against Illinois, because it'll be a great contrast. We know from watching Brett Bielema at Wisconsin that as he tries to bring Illinois back, his number one priority is going to be building a mammoth, powerful offensive line, because that's how he won at Wisconsin. So how Indiana holds up against Illinois' offensive line and how well they block Illinois' defense, right off the bat, we're going to be talking about that week and after that game.